But it's a completely different topic to talk about. It has nothing
Sure.
to do with Arcane. There's no Protoss in Arcane and no Zerg.
For now. You don't know.
Hopefully.
You just said Eridon didn't see the pass very clearly. There could have been Zerg.
Oh god, no, please. I don't need Kerrigan invading Arcane.
The best thing you could do is like take us through the quote true story, and then make it to the same spot you did in like the second Undead book, and then just have it be a dream again, and then start it over again.
Best thing, I'm doing exactly what you just said, and then at the end, it's a StarCraft campaign.
Yeah, it's like a Jim Raynor's just like blacked out drunk, and he's like, oh, this is weird.
Just another day.
I wonder what really happened.
Eridon was actually the Queen of Blades.
Right.
Totally canon now. Yeah, no.
I remember, speaking of Eridon, after I played the first Undead book, I spent like a day direct messaging you complaining about like Eridon and Skeleton Lord Crom. Just being like, these guys, like, they think they're too cool, and I hate it.
I remember you talking about Eridon, but I don't remember you hating Crom, actually.
I think just that in general, the faction gives that impression of, like, unctuous arrogance.
Yeah, that's pretty suitable, actually.
And I guess, like, the second... I'm not trying to, like, make the implication that the second Undead book played out the way it did because you got that feedback from people, or maybe if that was just, like, the plan all along. Is that like, oh, it turns out like they're gonna get their comeuppance because they think that they're really smart, but like they still have to interact with the world the same way everyone else does, even though they think they don't.
Undead, most hated faction, especially after the second human bot book really hurt them a lot.
Oh yeah, people. That's the thing too, especially for people like me who like are tired of seeing the undead just like get away with everything because they shouldn't. And then, like, the end of the second human book, they just, like, kill a bunch of characters. And you're like, what the hell? I hate them.
Especially the canon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, the undead are... It's really interesting through design of the undead. Like, when I originally first started the undead, they were really the balance keepers. They still think that they are the balance keepers, and they are in some regard. The thing is... Eridon is like really he considers himself above everyone in some way.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really showing it as much because he's not a demon in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time he still considers himself superior because he is, you have to give him some credit here. He thinks he is the last of the four who killed all the gods of Arcane in a way. I mean, he did end up undead because he blew himself up, basically. In a way. But he just thinks that he knows what's best for everyone. It's not like he's trying to, in his mind at least, he's not trying to force his will upon others. He actually believes that he is doing what is best for the world, and he just, over the centuries, lost his vision, in a way, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Which I also think the epilogue shows pretty well. Like he can't even figure out that everything he saw many things, and they were just wrong. It didn't happen that way.
Yeah. Also, the idea that we spent mostly the second books talking about this big bad guy, and then he just shows up and he's like, whatever your motivations are, they're based off of things that didn't really happen the way you remember them. And what I thought was nice was it makes the player question, because the only information that we the players have is usually from things that Brian or Eridon say, and then you realize like, okay, well, Eridon's an unreliable narrator, so while like the guy's name is the Dark One, right? So he's obviously probably not a great guy, and he's done bad things in the universe. But like, it makes you just wonder, like maybe everything you thought about what did happen is wrong as well.
That's also something that the epilogue is quite good at, because it makes you think when you see Largov and Eridon confront each other, who the actual fuck is telling the truth, so to speak.
Right, exactly.
Because Largov says that he only acted like Tregak, Largov, I'm going to call him Largov for obvious reasons, I know I spoiled again, but yeah, whatever. He just thinks that what he says is right, and Eridon thinks that what he says is right. Like, both think they are completely correct with their statements.
Yep.
The question is that the player has to ask himself, which I'm also not going to reveal for obvious reasons, who is right.
Yeah, what actually happened, yeah.
Yes. I mean, the true story is going to help a bit with some stuff, but the things that, the reasons why the characters behave the way they behave, and whether or not their motivations are true or not, lies so far in the past that, of course, not going to be completely, like you won't see the events yourself from the day, at least not in the true story of Arkain.
Okay. And, you know, well, it's funny. Once again, that's a very strong theme that you would get in Dark Souls, for example. Again, you haven't played it. But I think the point, though, that I would say is I think that's a style of storytelling that is clever and is underutilized. Again, I don't know, like, overly choosy with my words here, even though I am. But, like, basically, I can't really name too many stories, especially custom campaigns, but even like normal, like, you know, developer, like real industry developer made real-time strategy games that tell a story with any sort of actual like thematic storytelling or like, again, unreliable narration, anything that makes the player actually think about anything besides like, hey, we have to go kill this faction, right? That's pretty much what it always amounts to. Like, we just have to go and win this map. Then that's that, right? I guess maybe like Company of Heroes 2 makes, like, actually it has some sort of commentary on war and you know, how different factions had fought in the past and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure that maybe the viewers are aware that, like, it's not a simple thing to incorporate stuff like that. I think it's rare.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I guess that was a really roundabout compliment, but I'd like to see more of it as well. Again, especially just the idea of what an unreliable narrator is, and makes you realize, like, hey, as the receiver of this information, this might just be 100% false. I have no way to know. Yeah,
it should be used more. I agree completely with that. It's like often bad guy, good guy, stuff like that, instead of having you actually think about why did anything. I'm not trying to get too deep into that, because sometimes if you justify everything, it gets silly at some point.
That's a good point, yeah.
I also think that sometimes they're either trying too hard or they're trying not enough, or they find the balance. It's Eridon would like that probably, if someone found the balance. Yada yada.
I guess back to like the design of maps and stuff. Is there any, if you had to pick like one specific map of any previous iteration of a specific map where you released it and then realized, like, okay, I went way too far with this one, which do you think that would be?
Red Fist. But this was mostly because of a bug, actually, here.
Oh, yeah,
you
okay.
know, yeah, you remember that one where you had to resort to rep to defeat the enemy?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and that was more that was like a mild terrain thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was just a terrain thing. That wasn't really a design decision. That screwed everything up in that regard. Actually, I would say that, let me think, a mission that I published. The thing is, I published a map that I changed after initial publish, and then it got bad, in my opinion. The final mission of the first human book, actually, it has to change. I changed it from a normal RTS map to AOS instead. Like, Wave, you only had your heroes, and the AI just sent units at each other. I don't know, it was still not right. It also didn't work the way I wanted. It was pretty annoying, and I was pretty unhappy that I changed it, but then I kind of lost the old version, or the old version had other issues that I also would have had to sort out, and it just was messy. By now it's replaced again with the RTS version.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure how good that works, because it's been so long since release that there isn't too many people playing it, I think. Because I think the second books just outshine the first books anyway, in many regards, currently. So I'm not entirely sure how well that worked out, but it's one of the cases where like, yeah, I published that and I'm going to change it. Actually, okay, another example would be the Larine part that we talked about earlier. That I also changed, but it was not gameplay, but story instead.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, yeah, I am not keeping that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there was more moments like that, I just have to think about.
I just think about that mission in the caves with the
Oh,
kobolds. Oh my goodness.
Your favorite.
I mean, I don't think you actually changed that, though. I think that's still that way.
I made it a slightly bit easier, I think, but it's mostly the same, to be honest. I don't regret it.
Sure. Well,
Because,
okay,
you know,
so that introduces sort of... this is not the best way to describe this, and I get a little frustrated when people say this, but like it adds a semi-puzzle element in the sense that like there is a way to complete the mission, and it's not just brute force, right? Because I go into pretty much every real-time strategy custom map and think like, my first try is just going to be a brute force try. And then like for that one, for everyone who's wondering what's happening, you play as a Dwarven faction, and you're smack dab in the middle of the map. You're surrounded by like 4 or 5 enemy factions, and they attack you near endlessly. Like there are no breaks. And every enemy they send splits into 2 more enemies.
Not every.
Almost, yeah. So anyway, the point is, like, you couldn't kill them fast enough because they were splitting, and they would path block themselves, and you just get, like, a giant, endless enemy wave down, like, multiple paths to your base. So you could never leave to really accomplish anything. It was very difficult. I did beat it, but the idea was, it wasn't just like, hey, build your stuff out and go and win. There were like specific key moments in the map that you had to capitalize on, like when you get reinforcements that arrive at a different part of the map, rather than bringing to, like intuitively you bring those to your base to help survive, but instead, you know, you use those to go and attack something instantly. Something similar in like Green Wave.
Green Wave. I love that map. I still love it. Kazakrin says it's too easy still, but...
Again, for reference, it was like one of the biggest macro difficulty missions in the first human book. So, but again, I see it as like it's like not really a puzzle per se, but like there are ways that the player can maximize map events to actually do stuff, as opposed to, you know, oh yeah, you can build anything and then decide when you know, basically defend an attack and then go punish the enemy, which is most real-time strategy.
Yeah, I mean, for a second, the dwarf mission that you just mentioned. That's completely on Kazarkin. He wanted something like something like endless waves of those kobolds, and I was like, okay, cool, you can have that.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to add that and see what happens. So, and I said, I'm not going to remove it, and if anyone complains, I'm completely going to forward it to him, so he knows I'm going to say this.
Well, that's the difficulty with you know, you test yourself, you have testers, you have people like me who play, like people with different skill levels as well, or who like just straight up play differently. Because I believe, it seems to me, at least based on how a lot of the maps turned out, is, so I assume Kasserkin plays very aggressively.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, you know, will also play very defensively and be like, okay, I have to build up, make sure my economy is fully secure, and then take my large army and move out. But in many cases, you just have to take your starting units and go and do something.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to play Arcane aggressively, actually. I mean, you can play it aggressively. That's probably also one of the reasons. I think for Kazarkin, for example, I just think he knows what he's doing when he plays aggressively, so it works out for him. But if you try to play aggressively without knowing what you do, then it's going to backfire horribly. You can also play defensively, but it's going to take... As you have experienced in some chapters, it's going to take some time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm not trying to force the player to do everything aggressively, especially with the true story. I'm trying to fix some of these things, even though some missions may end up a bit too easy now, but I don't really mind. I still think we're in a good shape in the ones that I've already released so far, and I just think it's going to continue to improve, because there's some things that just need fixing, and there's other things that are fine the way they are. Like, I mean, we can the mission that you played probably was a bit too hard. That's also why I changed it. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's something to improve your own skills. Like if you have a very hard challenge.
Sure.
I've heard of some people during the development process of I think it was during the second book, I'm not sure which one. that Arcane was actually also a way to practice for multiplayer. I actually don't know that because I haven't played Warcraft 3 multiplayer against against other people instead of co-op or something in many years, and I've never really been that much into it. But I'm like, okay, good if it's helping you practice.
Sure, yeah, like if it's improving your mechanical skills, I suppose. Even though like the factions are different. Mm-hmm.
I still think the majority is playing for story rather than gameplay.
Sure.
To be completely honest, I don't think it's really to train you for melee multiplayer. It's not helping with that.
Agreed. Yeah. What are some shortcomings in just Warcraft 3 in general that, like, if you had a wish list of like what would you want to do but you can't because of Warcraft 3?
Spells, actually. There are some spell ideas that I have. For example, what's really annoying, actually, a pure damage spell. I mean, you have several spells that just cause damage and do little else. But even that, if you have to create a spell like that, it's annoying because you either have to use one with stun, you have to remove the stun, you have another one that's Frost Nova, you have to remove the Nova effect and stuff like that, and I don't really understand why that's actually a thing. And that's just one example, because I'm like editing spells that are not meant to do nothing but damage to do just damage because I want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there's also other spells that I have ideas for, and in order to implement them, I would have to use triggers. I can do that from a technical level. I'm more than able to do that, but I try to avoid it as much as I can because I think that too many spell abilities could. The more spells you create with triggers, you just end up having more potential breaks in your trigger system, and that's just annoying to deal with. I don't really enjoy fixing those things for the entire day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not as glamorous as some people think. Like, oh, I can storyboard out all these creative ideas I have about like the player choices and what everything's going to do, and then like the reality is you're just like desperately trying to find the what's causing a crash, like you had said.
Yeah. And like I said, AI that's causing crash simply by being there. It's so stupid. It's also one of the reasons why the Gate of Hell was actually made easier during development, because I had to remove an AI because it caused crashes.
Mm-hmm.
You know your favorite Gate of Hell mission?
I kind of I thought that one was pretty good. Honestly, I don't remember. It was so long ago. I'm sure I complained on nearly every mission.
You complained a lot about the Rain of Fire.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Yep.
That sounds right, yeah. No, but another thing, something that I think I just mentioned not too long ago in your Discord, naval AI, that's really annoying me that it's missing for Warcraft 3 from a technical level, because I think it was a thing in Warcraft 2. It isn't really in Warcraft 3. Like, I cannot even have a transport units without using triggers for that, and I don't want to combine triggers with AI because that's always going to cause issues.
Okay.
And that's the reason why on the island hopping missions that you love so much, I have to use things like Zeppelins to transport enemy waves to avoid it being just a few ships that you have to destroy.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because they are simply unable to use naval transports. I've experimented a lot with that in the past. Even if you make a Zeppelin and you just change it from moving air to moving only sea, it doesn't work anymore.
Huh. That's interesting, especially after Frozen Throne when they introduced a lot of the boats. I would have expected that to be part of something they added, but I guess not.
They didn't. They never did, and I have absolutely no explanation as to why. Probably because they didn't feel it was necessary, but it's so wrong.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Reforged did that either, but I wouldn't know, to be honest. I never tried to mod Reforged myself too hard.
So now that I think about it, talking about the naval AI, that's actually really interesting because I don't think I've ever played something where the enemy attacks me with boats. Is that part of it also? It can't. Okay.
It can be done in a way if you only use triggers.
Gotcha.
If you use AI, it is not going to work. If you use triggers to have units, like you spawn units and then they are ordered to load in on a ship, then the ship is ordered to move to a specific point to unload them and then moving back, and so on and so forth. Then the units, of course, would have to be ordered to do something again, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. So
possible.
I understand the transport ships, but I'm thinking like I don't think I've ever been attacked by any combat ships unless they've been pre-placed.
Yeah, that's also a thing.
Okay.
That doesn't really work out too good. I mean, I kind of worked around it a bit with in some Arcane maps, but for the most part, yeah, it's But ship attacks is actually easier to do than transport ships, which is very weird to me.
Yeah, especially I think maybe they wanted to encourage using Zeppelins or air transport just because it's less likely to have issues with the load-unload.
Yeah. That's probably the reason that was something pathing related, I would say.
Yeah, because, I mean, even if it was a built-in set for, like, AI actions, it's still, behind the scenes, it's just a set of triggers that they've made, but it's, like, packaged so that you can use it. And if, like, if you all are struggling, you all being, like, custom creators, can't get it to work, I'm assuming they ran into pretty much the same problems, and we're like, oh, screw it, we're just not gonna... We're not gonna give them anything built in for this, because it's never gonna work.
Probably. I also removed my precious oil resource.
Yeah, have you figured out a way to make like a third resource work at all?
It does work. I know there are several systems on the Hive Workshop made by creative people who created systems to add oil, for example, for their custom Warcraft 2 remakes. But I never really tried to use any of those because I'm not really fond of that.
Gotcha.
I was thinking about it for that one Golden Guard mission at the very end, if you chose to stick with Vandurs to invade the Empire, also known as a suicide attack, the Empire, but I was like, I think it's better if I just add old gold, because otherwise eventually we're going to run out of gold, and then you would have issues with incoming ground attacks, because the AI, of course, is not going to run out of gold, ever.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Speaking of talking about like other content creators, do you still play other people's campaigns? I know that you're a mod on Hive and you like approve projects and stuff. And if so, what are or what have been in the past some of your favorites?
Oh god. Can I answer that? No, I don't know. Yeah, I can answer that. I actually don't really play, apart from the testing that I'm doing as a map moderator, I don't really play too many other projects unless they really interest me. I think I'm not entirely sure which one was the last. I play them on a technical, like when I review a map, I more look at it from a technical point of view, like does it work or does it not work?
Gotcha.
Things like that. I'm not really there to get invested or anything. I'm just seeing is it working or not, simply because I'm actually not that much of a Warcraft player anymore as I was. I'm still playing Warcraft. I'm liking. I mod Warcraft. I like it, but it's like not my favorite game to play. This is going to alienate a lot of people, but
I don't think so. I think that's a very common feeling. I kind of feel the same way in the sense that, like, I really like Warcraft 3, but I feel myself playing it less and less. Like, I play it for my channel, obviously, but, like, I used to play it in my free time, too, and I do less and less, and I mean, it's the elephant in the room is how botched the Reforged release was, which has been talked to death, but the truth is, I feel like that really has dissuaded people from caring about the game in general, which has drawn, unfortunately, a lot of attention away from the communities that are actually still making stuff for it, which sucks.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point, but you're right, of course, since Reforged did not really improve this, but I also already had this feeling for a few years now, so I'm not... it's nothing Reforged related in my case. It's just me having played and modded so much Warcraft that there's just so many things that I have already seen and I already know. It's pretty hard to surprise me with new concepts, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, no, I completely understand after playing as much as I have also.
Yeah,
and you're well beyond, I think, my experience with the game.
I'm actually not... Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, just like, I mean, I should say that the time spent with the game in general, like, with all the time you spend in the editor and such, you know, like, you've been playing the game, both making stuff and playing stuff longer than I have.
and getting frustrated about stuff not working as intended, which is also
Right.
which is also a reason why I completely encourage everyone to move away from the goddamn AI editor that the standard Warcraft 3 editor gives you, because that thing is just an asshole.
Do you wanna elaborate on that and like talk about you? So you use Jas, right?
I'm using Jazz AI because it's also the AI that the original campaigns use. I think someone in the Discord has already talked about how they wanted to provide a better tool, but they couldn't, so they just made the editor, which is not bad, but it's also not optimal. Elaborate. I don't think I should talk too much about the Warcraft editor, simply because this is not the topic, and I really haven't used it in many years at this point.
Okay.
The thing that I can still talk about some experience I had in other projects. I mean, you know that I have like 80 unfinished projects lying around on my computer that I'm never going to publish, probably. Okay, it's not 80 projects, it's 81 campaigns, my mistake. Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a challenge from friends and mine, but that's a completely different topic now. We tried, I tried to use the AI editor. I started by using the AI editor when I first got into that modding part, when I edited it. But I don't know how to explain it. It just had so often I had it occur to me that the editor AI did not work at all, no matter what I did. And then I created it again from scratch, and it suddenly worked. No differences whatsoever. I just recreated the same file again, and then it works.
That happens with the Galaxy editor sometimes too. You just never know with these tools.
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons also Jazz AI was less bug prone, I felt. Because, I mean, I've seen it both in my own maps and other maps, where AI destroys a single building and then leaves for another few minutes.
I was just going to ask you about that, actually.
Yeah, that's AI editor stuff, yeah.
Okay. So if you use Jas, the AI won't do that?
The AI is usually attacking you until it's dead.
Okay.
If it works as intended.
Gotcha.
You can add a setting, because melee AI is also using Jazz, but are very different from the campaigns. You can add when they are very hurt or they feel like they're going to lose, that they can retreat and stuff like that. But I think that's only going to hurt a campaign. I don't think it has a place in any map, in a campaign map. It just should be limited to melee AI.
Sure, I agree. It's sort of the Jurassic Park adage of we know we can do this, but should we do this? And wondering in what is it worth implementing something like that? In what circumstances is that adding value to the campaign?
Yeah.
And also, I guess, questioning what is value in a campaign? And you have to be able to define that before you just start adding stuff that may be pointless.
Also, if AI feels like it cannot defeat you, it will never attack you, and then you have never these moments where AI attacks you, and because I mean you are attacked a lot in Arcane, obviously.
Right.
But even if the attacks have no way of defeating you, they're still crippling you, and I feel like the melee AI isn't really doing that. It only attacks you if it feels like it can actually win. But I have not spent so much time with melee AI that I could call myself an expert on it. I glanced into it and checked it a bit for some stuff, but most of the time I stick to campaign AI. I haven't really experimented out with melee AI yet.
Sure. Okay. Well, I don't really have any specific questions about Arcane, because I mean you were asked 200 questions, so I don't want to repeat any of those, which is why I asked if you had any others you wanted to reiterate there. So I'll link that thread in the video description. But is there anything that you want to talk about again around the design of Arcane, or any specifics about either in game or story or the development of Arcane you want to share with folks?
I'm actually surprised that it's still going.
Okay, I did have one more question that you just reminded me of, because there were, I think it was after the second human book, where you said you were done. And then you came back and you did the second orc book, and then you said you were done. And then you did half the second undead book, and said, I'm actually making like a whole new 100 mission campaign. So I guess you want to like maybe describe the kind of the ups and downs there and like motivation to do this?
Yeah. Okay, I have to correct you here, however, because it wasn't after it was like more like this. First, I created the first 4 missions of the second human book. Then I quit.
Okay.
Then I finished the second human book. Then I quit again. And let me think. The third time was there? What did you say? I didn't quit after the second orc book, at least, or not after the second undead book, because I already knew during development of the second undead book that I was going to create the true story. The idea was rather not should I quit, the idea was rather should I actually bother, so to speak, creating the second undead book in the first place, because we've played the same story, or not the same story, by no means the same story, but we all know what's going to happen at the end after after so many campaigns. So should I really do that, or should I instead go for the canon version that I already knew I wanted to set up? I already spent much time writing lore for things that happen after the Second Void War. Like, I don't even know how many stories at this point, 20 plus something. You also wrote one?
I did. I have written one short story for the Tales of Arkain. I thought it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. I still like it. It's canon, so you can't really... It is canonized. You cannot escape Arkain anymore, Jay.
That's why I made sure to pick my character, which is Sir J. Bubblerino, who we know is dead. So I'm like, really, no matter what I do with this guy, like, it really couldn't... I feel like it couldn't be, like, argued that it would be, like, a bad addition, because I'm like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
The best part is that now he has a model that has an actual loot.
Oh, does he really? I haven't played it since
Yes.
then. I think, didn't Deep Strats put that together?
Yes, and
That's
now
great.
it's actually using a loot. It's just fantastic. He's not using it, but I have to find out a way how to make him use it.
Yeah.
Maybe like a Starfall-esque ability or something like that. He's just playing his loot and everyone around him is dying.
Oh, so I thought he played that when he turns the bubble on.
I actually have to check to be absolutely sure right now, because I haven't really tried to fight him. I'm not fighting Sir J. Bubblerino.
With a bubble that lasts a full minute, right? That's funny.
I know you deep inside you hate me for that, but
well, I mean I hated the bubble in general. So of course you named a character after me and gave them a longer, but like a 3 times as long as normal bubble.
Excuse me, 15 seconds longer.
Okay, I guess that's not as
3.
bad. No, I found that. I found that funny.
I could have. I mean, I have played a campaign that has like a really endless bubble.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like the final true story of Arkain. It's just like every enemy just they're just invulnerable. They just have and you have to complete the mission objectives without killing any enemy units because they can't be targeted. That's where we're going.
It's going to be the peaceful Arkain story, like how to win without killing a single enemy. Like Deathless Run, but instead the enemy cannot die.
It's like that's like the only way you can beat it is deathless, right? Is enemy deathless, yeah.
Try to win Arkain without killing a single unit.
So, are the attack waves in Arkain, are they timed, or is it like if you just say like you just like kited an enemy attack wave in a big circle, would they still send out another one? If that first one was still alive?
I'm actually, now that you mention it, I haven't really tried that. I'm not sure if it's even possible.
Okay. I guess I don't know, because I don't know how the attack waves are scripted. If they're just like, after 45 seconds, send these units, or not.
I feel like I should know this. I'm pretty sure I used to know it, but I haven't really tried it anymore. I haven't really done that kind of experiment. I haven't really tried deliberately to break the AI like that.
Gotcha. Well, that's what testers are for, yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you can actually kite them that way to have not another wave spawn, because I think they shouldn't send us, but I'm not entirely sure right now. It has been so long since I really experimented around with that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But
I'm just trying to think of ways that I can exploit the true story when it comes out, you know?
That's how you're going to play the hard mode, okay? I have to include J difficulty. No AI breaks possible.
Yeah, right.
Every AI enemy has bubble.
J difficulty also would be a lot easier. Like, it'd be really easily exploitable, I guess would be the consistent theme.
I didn't know you're so much into exploiting, Jay. I'm actually very, very sad to hear that.
It's actually true that, well, no, the opposite is true. I never find myself, like, looking for, like, clever ways. Though, there are times, like, if it's really difficult, I'll be like, okay, how can I just, like, get around this? Like, can I just make a bunch of airships and go and snipe the objectives? Which I've certainly done on some of your maps. But that's usually not my first inclination.
But you did it, but you had to somehow.
Yeah. Because, like, at the end of the day, I'm decent at these games, but, like, I'm not, in many cases, like, I'm just not a fast enough player to legitimately legitimately beat a lot of them.
I didn't want to tell you this, Jay, but in the true story, you will only try footman variants and nothing else.
Oh my gosh. But it's only footman variants, but there's going to be like 100 of them, right?
Yes, of course. Specialized, like one has a better shield than the other, another has more damage.
Building to get loaded out.
Specialize the footmen, send them into the buildings to become better at their job. And at the end, you have an elite.
Let me tell you how I'll be beating the true story. If they're demon lords behind trees, you know your boy is going to be getting those, because don't you have it so that they like turn, you can like convert them? Once you kill them, they like turn into like angelic creatures that are on your team?
I was actually hoping we would talk about that. I almost forgot myself. Yes. Our High Lord Inquisitor Reynold Van Durs, with so many titles that even I have to check his page every time to make sure I get them all correctly, is going to be able to turn Demon Lords into... I'm not 100 on the name yet, but I think Vanguard is actually going to be the name of those units, like the model is named.
That's cool.
The Vanguard. The Vanguard, you get it, because Van Durs.
So you have to find them, kill them twice because they have resurrection, and then they get resurrected as like as a vanguard that you can then use.
Yes.
That's cool.
The idea is also that you can train them late when you do that.
Oh, okay. See, that's really interesting. Again, that's taking something that was like kind of silly at first, but you retain the silliness, but actually make it so that the player can actually interact with it in some interesting way.
Yes. Exactly. Of course, this is not going to be possible for the orcs, because the orcs never have a demon lord behind trees in no single mission.
Well,
I
don't believe it, but
I'm not lying this time. I've put Cyclops behind trees, and you didn't find them.
They were my allies. I didn't find them.
Yes, and you didn't find them.
They were really far back there, to be fair.
Yeah, but the one time I'm putting something behind trees to help you, you're not finding it.
Yeah, and I was even told to look, and I didn't do it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not blaming you. They are kind of hidden, but I couldn't help but laugh when that happened.
Yes. I got him. Yeah, I remember I went back and got him off camera.
Yeah.
And that also made the following mission way harder not having those things.
Yes.
Way harder. But again, I guess this is a good thing.
It was made easier anyway. So,
okay, yeah. I was going to say, I guess the idea, as I've said, my favorite part of Arcane is how the player choices are wrapped in, is a good kind of point to wrap up on, is how that's a great example where, like, you reward the player for exploration. I didn't do it, and then I made a map like way harder for myself. It was still possible. I did it, but like it's cool that there's something there that the player can do to like actually make missions like noticeably easier for themselves, which is cool. That's a great option.
I mean, to be fair, it was a choice, so to speak, but it wasn't a choice you were aware of.
Right. Well, I mean, I was given a clue. There were like a straight. I think it was something about how there were like the Cyclops were nearby.
Yeah, I mean, not the Cyclops, but someone mentioned in the intro cutscene that one-eyed giants had apparently been seen somewhere behind the trees or something like that.
Okay.
I kind of expected you to say something about, oh, there's going to be demon lords behind trees again, isn't there? And then the second orc book of Arcane, the first no, not the first, but for only of the second books at least, that had no demon lord behind trees. So
Man,
far.
I can't even... I'm surprised I didn't really realize that, because there was definitely... You put them in there... Like, there was a whole mission, almost, around that in the second Undead book. With the sludges, yeah.
Oh, yes, sludges. That... I think I should really fix that camera, by the way, that shows you the sludges behind trees.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't you see them, I think, in the intro cinematic?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure if that was on purpose or not. I don't really remember that, but I'm pretty sure originally when I put the cameras there was just the shrooms and no sludges behind trees.
Again, though, taking something again that's like silly and like could be pretty aggravating, but like making it into something like it kind of like there's like an awareness there where you're like, yeah, this is funny, and like now you have to collect the lumber knowing there's going to be stuff back there.
I mean, in that mission there was so much stuff behind trees that you had to have realized this eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had to basically prepare for it.
Yeah, unless you went the other way, not using the Peacemaker, which was totally peaceful and not harmful in any way, and attack the fortress instead.
That would have taken longer, I think. Well, I don't know. Looking back, I'm not sure.
I think so.